to Rebel Roots. I am so excited to be joined today by Fernando and Andres. We are going to discuss all things tiny homes. They actually have a beautiful tiny home. We're going to talk about architecture, and then also Andres has a very rich history and design and urban planning even. So we can even get into that and how tiny homes are an amazing solution for attainable housing and really future forward thinking in terms of minimalism and sustainable design principles. So without further ado, hello.
Hi.
Hello.
Hello. How are you?
Thank you for joining. Yeah, we're so excited to have your tiny home listed with us at Tiny House Society. If you'd like to go ahead and introduce yourselves, and then further down in the interview, I can screen share and we can show photos of this beautiful tiny home.
Okay. What about you?
So my name is Fernando Pages, and I'm kind of an expert in affordable housing. And that's how I got interested in the tiny houses, because really it's kind of the ultimate in affordable housing, given the costs of these houses, fully furnished, fully functional, are quite low, much less half, a quarter, an eighth of the cost of an actual stick-built home. And it has the benefit of portability. You want to move, you can take your house with you.
Mm-hmm.
And Andres is the architect who designed and really constructed the tiny house that we are currently offering through your marketplace.
Great.
Yeah.
Well, so we have, I became interested in tiny houses. I have an architectural office. And some years ago, the young people in my office went to a convention in Central Florida. And I said, where are you going? And they said, we're going to this tiny house convention. And I said, well, count me out. And, but I went anyway because they were interested. And what I found there was almost like a revival meeting. It was incredibly exciting. There were dozens of houses. There were hundreds of true believers. I counted 40 just to give you the size, 40 porta potties, these things. And they were up late at night. And I said, this is actually important. At the time, I was an architect for society clients, doing waterfront mansions in Miami. But I said, the excitement that I see here, I haven't seen in decades. And so there were enough technical people there to explain everything to me, how they were licensed, et cetera, et cetera. And then I looked at the designs and I saw just a couple of things. One was that there were a bunch of engineers that had great solutions technically, and they were almost unlivable. They had no charm at all. And then there were what can only be described metaphorically, of course, as basically stoned hippies that just loved the concept of the house, and they were just beloved little things. And what I realized is that very few professionals like myself had actually engaged in this endeavor of the tiny house. Now, Fernando is an expert in affordable housing. He actually he's in the second edition on the best-selling book on how to build affordably. And he was a very good, what I would consider code hack, somebody who really understands codes and figures out what is allowed and what isn't. Mm-hmm. So what you have is a combination, but Fernando's also an architect, but you have a combination of somebody who is pretty expert at designing elegant houses, and 45 years, in fact, in the practice, and then somebody who's just a wizard at construction and reading where the loopholes are in the code. And so we worked together, and right away, as soon as people knew, because Fernando is very well known at the International Builder Show in Las Vegas, which is attended by 120,000 people, biggest show on earth, really. And then people knew me, and we immediately were commissioned to actually do the model house for that show. This was what, six years ago?
2019.
2019. We were immediately commissioned to do it, and we said, let us just knock it out of the ball field. And this is what I realized. There were a couple of things that are very important. I was very interested in it being licensed by the Department of Motor Vehicles, because that allowed it to go over state lines, that allowed it to be parking in parking lots. I wanted a license, that could go. And furthermore, I also wanted it to be a vehicle that I could depreciate, not like a house, but like machinery, like a copying machine. I really wanted, if it were a business, I wanted it to be quickly depreciated, on the 7-year schedule.
So you could get an immediate tax advantage
Right.
in terms of an annual depreciation, even if the house is actually worth more over time.
Yeah.
That's the way the depreciation game works. So it was because it's a property rather than real estate, it could be done that way. And the idea there was we were in COVID at the time, that these units were useful for places like hospitals that needed to house doctors that were dealing with COVID patients and didn't want to go home and have the danger of maybe, infecting their families. And so they would stay on site, sometimes in uncomfortable situations, living at the hospital. So we could put some of these out in the parking lots and have the doctors stay there.
Yeah.
There was also the question of, housing for so many areas, like we're in Miami currently, there's hurricanes or storms. Can you live in a house that when the storm comes, rather than putting up shutters and praying and hoping for the best, you drive it away? And then, you drive it to safe ground, you wait till the disaster's over, and then you bring it back home.
Yeah.
So the portability was also something that was valuable, but it had to be livable. And some of these tiny homes were quite uncomfortable. They were almost a little bit punitive.
So what I realized, thanks to Fernando's code hack, we realized that it had to be within a certain footprint. I think 240 square foot. There was a certain footprint, a certain height. When I looked at it, I realized that with that footprint, if you had only the skill of designing in plan, not very much was possible. But nevertheless, it was very high. They can be very tall, these houses, because all they have to do is clear 16 feet. So I realized that the challenge was not designing in plan, where not much could be done, but designing in section. Interlocked like a bento box with different heights, etc., because the height was bigger than the length. And so we began to really read the code very, very, very carefully. The height that was for the stand-up bedroom, the height for the bathroom, etc. And I realized, by the way, just by chance, that the code that allowed this, it was a tiny house code that was written, is exactly the code that is written for yachts, for the interior of yachts. Those were the dimensions that are allowed for in fact, for quite elegant yachts. And you know how yachts are quite complex. But now yachts have a trick, which is they're all made out of wood, so all the furniture is built in, because you can actually screw it into the wooden walls. So the house that we designed is built it can roll over in a hurricane. It won't, because it weighs too much, but it's half-inch plywood inside and half-inch plywood outside. It's a double plywood box, because we wanted the durability, but we also wanted to build in all the furniture into it. And so in the end, what we came up with is a house. Listen to this, because it's almost extraordinary. It's a full-size stand-up bathroom, full-size bathroom that is 5 feet wide by 8 feet long. There's a queen-size bed, which is above it.
You can stand up.
And the bedroom you can stand up. You can stand up in the bedroom, which is unheard of in a house like this. We use the height of the wheels, or the other thing that was expensive is we don't have the wheels below the vehicle. We have the wheels sort of coming into the vehicle, which gave us a lot of things. We had a double height space for the living dining. This house has a dishwasher. It has a laundry. It has I think 9 or 10 linear feet of kitchen. It also sits, believe it or not, it sits 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. It seats 7 for dinner, 7.
Woo.
So, which is a fantastic party house. So this thing was so kind of a, and by the way, the table lifts up. So when you sit in the couch, it's like a theater. It's like a home theater. So all of this was built like a ship, and it was so unusual that we actually received a patent for it. A United States patent for a building is completely unheard of.
Wow.
You can get patents. You can get patents for a joint. You can patents for a corner. You can get patents for a material. You can never get a patent for a whole building design. And we have a U.S. patent on this section.
Wow.
And so, it's extraordinary. It has a full size washer dryer. It has a full size dishwasher. It has a half size refrigerator. It's an amazing little house. Now, what happened to it? We took it to the International Builder Show in Las Vegas. It had the longest queues to visit.
It was the most popular exhibit.
The most popular exhibit. Now, of course, only 3 people go in at the same time.
Yeah.
Right. So, of course, that was maybe the reason for the queue, right? Yeah. So that may be the reason for the queue, but it was still so popular that it embarrassed the other people displaying it, and they stopped taking a record of who was coming in. But then the head of the Housing and Urban Development, who was visiting, what's his name at the time, Dr. somebody or other.
Yeah.
So the head of HUD from Washington was visiting. He came to see it.
Mm-hmm.
There are photographs of him visiting it, and then the governor of California called, and who was the governor at the time? Not Newsom, the early guy. It was early days of COVID, and the governor called, and the house was built in Alabama under my supervision. It was taken to Las Vegas, which was quite a ride, and then the governor called from Sacramento and said, "Bring it over." So that house crossed the Rockies and went down to the other side, and then the governor. What?
Interrupt. And this can be moved with a regular truck, right?
Yes, we did it. So it actually was designed to not require a license, as a special hauling license or trucking license, and it's designed for the weight to be hauled by an F-250. Okay, it's not even have to be a huge truck. F-250. It crossed the Rockies. Okay, to go to California. And then when that was done, we drove it down all the way to LA, stopping in Silicon Valley to talk to the people from Apple and everybody else and say, look, instead of having your kids commute from the end of, their employees were commuting an hour or two because there was no housing. I said, instead of giving them a parking lot space, why don't you park the house on the parking lot space and prevent them from commuting? And we got at least one company was so excited that we started looking for a factory to start building them, and so on and so on. And then what happened is COVID hit hard,
Shut down.
everything. And so we parked it in a friend of mine's vineyard, actually strawberry farm in California, for basically 3 years. For 3 years. And, when you park something like that, it decays, it just gets. And so Fernando, then we drove it over again to Houston. So it crossed the Rockies twice. And that shows you by the way, the trailer was the best you could buy. Nothing better than the trailer. Trailer was $6,000 in those days. And then Fernando rebuilt it, just washed it up, rebuilt it inside and out, because it had been out in that farm for 3 years, and now it's in impeccable condition. But it's still too far from where I live, which is Miami, right? And so we just decided maybe to sell it.
Yeah, and you're listing at
story house.
75,000, right? In terms of the price.
Well, I'll tell you what, that's what it costs to build.
Right. And that was even before all the building material costs skyrocketed during
Yeah. And the workers were fabulous. I mean, every screw was actually spaced with a ruler. That wasn't strictly speaking necessary, but the workers were really fine carpenters. They were really cabinet makers that made it in Alabama, and they were working for their boss, and so they had to really show off. But I don't think another one like that could be built. It's so exquisitely built. I mean, I'm sorry to sell it, but I can't. I just can't haul it one more time across the continent. We'll
Well,
just have to build another one.
happy whether they live in Texas right now or not. We move these tiny homes all over the place. So knowing that this one, can be pulled with a Ford F-250, that probably helps alleviate any concerns, because someone might be watching this like Idaho and want to purchase
There's
this.
lots of companies that will also move it. That'll actually, it doesn't have to be up on a truck. They actually haul it.
Oh, it's not on a truck.
Yeah, they just.
It's just hauled behind an F-250.
Yeah.
And that's how it's always been hauled.
Yeah.
And not by professional truckers either. Just by kind of responsible people.
Yeah.
Well, there's a huge tiny home movement in Texas. So I wouldn't be surprised if we could find someone in the Houston area, the Central Texas area. There's a lot of homestead properties in Texas. So we'll see what happens there. And I'm excited to get the word out and to share this interview out with folks.
There was a couple of things I wanted to emphasize on what Andres said. One of the structural elements in the house is the furniture.
Yeah.
The bed, the cabinets, the closets. All of that was designed as a structure in the lateral sense, that it is the bracing actually for the house. So the structure, the furniture, it's all one. And in other words, you couldn't remove the furniture and leave the shell intact. They're all tied together, which makes it very strong.
Yeah.
And the other part of it was when Andres was talking about the difference between designing in plan and in section. Designing in plan is like the bird's eye view. If you sit down to sketch a house or a room or something and you draw, like, oh, it's the bed here. That's a particular way of seeing that makes it very difficult to take full advantage of the volume. When you draw in section, it means you're drawing it as if it was standing up, as you were looking through it, through the walls. Instead of down at the floor, you're looking through the walls. And this is what permitted what is the charm of the house, which is the places where you can stand to dress in the bedroom. And you don't have to crawl into the bed.
And by the way, it's got a basement. Under the bedroom is a basement, what we call the basement, which is where the washer dryer is.
Yeah.
Okay.
All this in this tiny little thing, because it's all in section. You see, these things have a great height that's never used.
Right.
Yeah,
And incidentally, it has a loft that's a stand-up loft. I really dislike these places that you take the ladder up and you gotta crawl on the bed on your knees. You don't have to do that.
How do you make the bed? Very difficult to make the bed.
And we built in the closets, we built in the shelves, we built in a desk upstairs for your computer.
Yep.
It really has everything. It was, I love the little thing. I just can't keep hauling it around,
In the Builder's Show.
Home, a happy forever home for the tiny. I want to share too. So I have this cool article with some of your site designs and the concept of new urbanism. I don't know. It's like not necessarily related to the tiny home, but just since we're interviewing, do you want to share a bit about your work in architecture in general and site planning? And
well, yes, we've this concept of the new urbanism is the old way of designing towns in which you can walk to all your daily needs. They're very walkable towns. They're mixed use. They have actually become so popular that they're resorts. And I think a lot of people in Houston know, for example, Seaside in Florida, Rosemary Beach, Alice Beach, Windsor. We've designed a lot of resorts that are like the old towns. And that's what we're best known for. I became passionate about these tiny houses when I realized the affordability was the really important issue. And one thing I wanted to say too, there's a lot of documentation about that tiny house that I can send you.
okay.
The sectional drawings, the presentation drawings, all that is and I just want to say one thing. The show in Las Vegas gave us the siding to use, right? And so you will see that the early drawings have a kind of fake wood siding, which looks fine, but it's rather weak and thin.
It's residential quality.
It's a residential quality. And so what Fernando did is we bought this beautiful, very expensive siding. It's a beautiful aluminum profile, which is exactly the one that's used in container houses.
It's commercial. It's commercial
It's a
grade.
commercial grade. And so you will see that there's two kinds of images. There's this image, which is the new with the very tough skin. I mean, this thing can be hit by a coconut, in a hurricane, and it won't dent. And of course, the windows were also donated. The windows are incredibly expensive windows because the show donated them to us.
Yeah, we had to, because the show is funded by people who are showing off their products. A lot of the items were upgraded because they were like, oh, this is our best window, and we install it there.
So there isn't going to be another one. I mean, we're going to build others,
but not one like that.
But it's impossible to build them of this material. That was just it's a one-off because that builder show donated all those materials, actually.
Yeah, one of a kind.
Yeah.
Unique opportunity. Oh, well, thank you so much for meeting today and sharing the story. I think we have a nice solid 20 minutes of information about the tiny home. I will link in the description more information as well with all the specs. If you want to,
we'll send you a lot of drawings so people can understand the section and how it works.
Yes.
And where the basement and the stand-up bedroom, all these things, so you can see how the movable table works, all that stuff.
Thank you so much.
Incidentally, the dining room has the cushions to create a second double bed.
Oh,
so actually, there's a proper bedroom and a second double bed.
A guest bedroom.
Let me see here.
So you lower the dining room table. The dining room table is on a pole, right? So you can swing it out, it comes back. So you just swing it out, you sit around, you bring it back, you see? Now that dining room table on a pole can also go down to the level of the cushions, and we have a cushion that fits over it, and now you have
that's another double bed.
A guest bedroom, essentially.
Yeah.
Yeah. Oh, it is so clever. Yeah, thank you so much for sharing. And I'm going to put more information in the description. I really appreciate y'all's time. Do you have any closing thoughts? Anything you'd like to share? One last hoorah information about the tiny home, or you're working?
Whoever owns the house really owns a little piece of architectural history.
Yeah.
Like owning an original Buckminster Fuller dome or something like that, you'd have an original Andres Duany tiny house.
Yes, and by the way, it can't be reproduced because it's patented.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, if we don't decide to build another one, there's not going to be another. It's not like someone can copy it.
Yeah,
do you see what I'm saying? So it truly is unique.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing. Okay, I'm going to do a quick little wrap up here. Thank you all for watching.
Bye.
Bye. Thank you. Okay. Yes. Thank you for watching this episode of Rebel Roots. We are planting seeds for transformation, paving new ways forward on this planet, living lighter on the earth, having flexibility of different location where you want to live and park the tiny home, making all of these alternative living lifestyles more possible. If you think this tiny home would be a great fit for you or someone that you know, be sure to share this video and don't forget to subscribe to our channel. Thank you all so much for watching, and you can learn more at tinyhousesociety.com. Bye.